What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars walks onto a morning show set expecting a friendly conversation, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to tear him down? In just 37 seconds, a routine interview transforms into one of the most shocking moments in morning television history. This is the story of how Savannah Guthrie's relentless attacks pushed Jamie Foxx to his breaking point, and why millions of viewers are now calling her behavior absolutely unacceptable. The Today Show studio buzzed with its usual morning energy, cameras positioned perfectly, lighting adjusted just right, and the audience settling into their seats with coffee cups in hand. Jamie Foxx walked onto the set with that characteristic smile that has charmed audiences for decades. He waved to the crowd, shook hands with the crew, and took his seat across from Savannah Guthrie. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. But within minutes, the entire atmosphere would shift into something nobody saw coming. Savannah opened with what appeared to be a standard greeting. "Jamie, thanks for being here." Her smile seemed warm enough, but there was something in her tone, something sharp underneath the pleasantries. Jamie, ever the professional, responded with genuine enthusiasm. "Hey, thanks for having me. Always good to be here, you know? Love talking to people. Love connecting." His energy was infectious, the kind that makes you want to lean in and listen. But Savannah wasn't interested in connecting. She had a different agenda entirely. "So," Savannah began, leaning forward slightly, "let's talk about your career." The way she emphasized the word career made it sound like an accusation rather than a topic of conversation. Jamie nodded, still smiling, still open. "Sure, absolutely. It's been an incredible journey, you know? I feel blessed every single day." His gratitude was palpable, his humility genuine. But Savannah wasn't done setting her trap. "Blessed," she repeated, her voice dripping with something that sounded almost like contempt. That's an interesting word coming from someone who has had so many controversies follow them around. The studio went quiet. You could feel the tension ripple through the audience like a wave. Jamie's smile faltered for just a moment, confusion crossing his face. "Controversies? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Savannah. I've always tried to stay focused on the work, on entertaining people, on making them feel something." Savannah didn't miss a beat. She pulled out a stack of papers, shuffling them dramatically as if she was about to reveal some damning evidence. "Oh, come on, Jamie. Let's not play games here. Your personal life has been tabloid fodder for years. Don't you think the public deserves some answers?" The question hung in the air like a threat. Jamie shifted in his seat, his body language changing from relaxed to defensive. "My personal life is personal, Savannah. I came here to talk about my new project, to share something positive with people. I didn't come here to be interrogated about gossip." "Gossip?" Savannah scoffed, actually scoffed on live television. "Is that what we're calling accountability now?" The audience murmured uncomfortably. Some people shifted in their seats. Others exchanged glances that clearly said, "Is this really happening?" Jamie took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "Accountability for what exactly? I've never claimed to be perfect. I'm a human being. I make mistakes like everyone else. But I also work hard. I take care of my family, and I try to put good energy into the world." Savannah leaned back in her chair with a look that could only be described as smug. "Good energy?" she said mockingly. "Is that what you call it when you show up hours late to set? When you make demands that cost productions thousands of dollars? When you treat people around you like they're beneath you?" The accusations came rapid. Fire, each one more baseless than the last. Jamie's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "That's not true. None of that is true. And frankly, Savannah, I'm surprised you would sit here and say these things without any proof, without any context, without even giving me a chance to respond properly." "Oh, you want a chance to respond?" Savannah's voice rose slightly, her professional mask slipping. "How about you respond to the fact that 3 crew members from your last film filed complaints about your behavior? How about that?" The studio went completely silent now. Even the crew members operating cameras seemed frozen. Jamie stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. "What are you talking about? There were no complaints. This is the first I'm hearing about any of this. Where are you getting this information?" Savannah waved her hand dismissively. "Sources, Jamie. Multiple sources. Credible sources." She said the word credible like it was supposed to end the conversation, like it was supposed to make everything she said automatically true. Jamie shook his head slowly. "Sources, right. So you're going to sit here on national television and make accusations against me based on unnamed sources that I can't even defend myself against? Do you understand how wrong that is? I understand that the public has a right to know who they're supporting, Savannah shot back. They have a right to know what kind of person you really are behind the cameras and the red carpets and the carefully crafted image. Her words were sharp, cutting, meant to wound. Jamie sat up straighter, his voice growing firmer. The kind of person I am? Let me tell you the kind of person I am, Savannah. I'm someone who grew up with nothing. I'm someone who worked every single day to get where I am. I'm someone who employs people, who creates opportunities, who tries to lift others up. I'm not perfect, but I'm genuine. And I don't deserve to be ambushed like this. Savannah crossed her arms, a gesture that screamed defensiveness despite her attempts to appear in control. Ambushed? This is journalism, Jamie. This is asking the tough questions that need to be asked. Jamie let out a short, bitter laugh. Journalism? This isn't journalism. Journalism is fair. Journalism is balanced. Journalism requires evidence and context. What you're doing right now is a hit piece disguised as an interview. The temperature in the studio seemed to rise with every exchange. Savannah's face flushed slightly, anger or embarrassment, or maybe both coloring her cheeks. I don't appreciate your tone, she said, her voice taking on an icy quality. I'm trying to have a conversation here, and you're becoming hostile. Jamie's eyebrows shot up. I'm becoming hostile? Savannah, you've spent the last several minutes attacking my character, making up stories, and questioning my integrity. And when I defend myself, you say I'm hostile? Do you hear yourself right now? I hear someone who can't handle being held accountable. Savannah responded coolly, someone who is used to everyone just fawning over them and can't deal with actual scrutiny. The words landed like punches. Jamie closed his eyes for a moment, taking another deep breath, clearly trying to center himself. When he opened them again, there was a sadness there, mixed with the frustration. You know what, Savannah? I actually feel sorry for you. I feel sorry that you think this is what good television looks like. I feel sorry that you believe tearing someone down is the same as building yourself up. Savannah's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare condescend to me. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, celebrities far bigger than you. And I don't need your pity or your lectures about what good television is. Her voice was rising now, the professional veneer cracking completely. Jamie held up his hands. I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm trying to understand why you would invite me here just to attack me. What did I ever do to you? Have we ever even met before today? This isn't personal, Savannah insisted, though her tone suggested otherwise. This is about holding powerful people accountable for their actions. Jamie leaned forward, his voice dropping but intensifying. What actions, Savannah? Specifically, what actions are you holding me accountable for? Because so far, all I've heard are vague accusations and unnamed sources and general character attacks. If you have something real, something concrete, then say it. Otherwise, admit that this is exactly what it looks like, a setup. Savannah shuffled her papers again, clearly flustered. I don't have to admit anything. The evidence speaks for itself. Jamie shook his head, a sad smile crossing his face. What evidence? You haven't shown any evidence. You've just made claims and expected me to sit here and take it. Well, I'm not going to do that. I respect myself too much. And I respect the people watching too much to let them think this is okay. If you can't handle the heat, Savannah said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, maybe you shouldn't be in the spotlight. It was such a cliché line, such a lazy response, and everyone in the room seemed to feel it. Jamie stood up slowly, deliberately. The heat? Savannah, I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've faced real criticism, real challenges, real struggles. What you're doing right now? This isn't heat. This is just cruelty disguised as curiosity. Sit down, Jamie, Savannah commanded, her voice sharp. We're not done here. But Jamie was already removing his microphone, his movements calm and measured despite the chaos of the moment. Actually, Savannah, we are done. I'm done. I came here in good faith. I came here to share my work, to connect with people, to have a real conversation. But you had other plans. And I won't be part of whatever this is. Savannah stood up too now, her face red with anger or embarrassment, or both. You can't just walk off my set. This is unprofessional. This is exactly the kind of behavior I was talking about. Jamie paused, turning to look at her one last time. Unprofessional? Savannah, look around. Look at your crew. Look at your audience. Do they look like they think I'm the one being unprofessional here? Or do they look like they're wondering what happened to the person they used to respect? The audience was completely silent, but their body language said everything. Some were nodding slowly, others had their hands over their mouths in shock. A few were openly shaking their heads at Savannah. The energy in the room had completely turned. "I don't care what they think," Savannah said, but her voice wavered slightly. "I care about the truth." Jamie's response was quiet but powerful. "The truth is that you brought me here to make yourself look good at my expense. The truth is that you used your platform to spread rumors and lies. The truth is that you forgot the basic principle of treating people with respect and dignity." "How dare you?" Savannah started, but Jamie cut her off gently. "How dare I? How dare you, Savannah? How dare you use your position of power to bully someone? How dare you pretend this is journalism when it's just cruelty? How dare you think you can treat people this way and face no consequences?" His words weren't shouted. They were spoken with a calm clarity that made them even more impactful. Every syllable landed with weight. Savannah tried to regain control of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick commercial break." But her voice was shaking now, uncertain. Jamie was already walking toward the edge of the set. "You do what you need to do, Savannah, but I'm not going to be part of this anymore. And I hope everyone watching remembers this moment, remembers what it looks like when someone abuses their power, remembers that just because someone has a platform doesn't mean they have the right to use it to hurt people." "You're making a huge mistake," Savannah called after him, her voice now openly desperate. "Walking off this show is career suicide." Jamie stopped at the edge of the stage, turning one final time. "My career has survived real challenges, Savannah. It'll survive this too. The question is whether yours will. Because people don't forget. They don't forget when someone shows their true colors. They don't forget when someone chooses cruelty over kindness. And they definitely don't forget when someone gets exactly what they deserve." With that, Jamie Foxx walked off the Today Show set, leaving Savannah Guthrie standing alone in front of a shocked audience and millions of viewers at home. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of her stunned expression. Crew members rushed around trying to figure out what to do next. The teleprompter was useless now. The carefully planned segments meant nothing. Everything had fallen apart. Savannah stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. Her mouth opened and closed as if she was trying to find words, trying to salvage the situation, trying to explain what had just happened. But there were no words, no explanation, no way to undo what everyone had just witnessed. She had pushed too far, attacked too hard, and revealed too much about who she really was beneath the polished exterior. The audience began to whisper among themselves, the sound growing louder with each passing moment. Some people were already standing up, heading for the exits. Others were pulling out their phones, no doubt already posting about what they had just seen. The story was spreading in real time, moving faster than Savannah could ever control or contain. Her attempt to take down Jamie Foxx had backfired spectacularly, and now she was the one left standing in the wreckage. A producer finally rushed onto the set, whispering urgently in Savannah's ear. She nodded mechanically, her face still frozen in that expression of shock and disbelief. "We'll be right back," she managed to say to the camera, her voice barely above a whisper. And then the red light went off, and she was no longer live. But the damage was done. The moment was captured. The truth was out there for everyone to see. In those final moments before the commercial break, you could see it all play across Savannah's face. The realization that she had miscalculated badly. The understanding that her questions hadn't made her look tough or journalistic, but rather petty and mean-spirited. The dawning awareness that she had given Jamie Foxx the moral high ground, and he had claimed it with grace and dignity, while she had fumbled and flailed and shown the worst parts of herself. Jamie Foxx's calm, measured responses had made him look like the grown-up in the room. His refusal to sink to her level had elevated him even further in the eyes of viewers. His decision to walk away rather than continue to engage with someone who wasn't interested in a real conversation had been exactly the right move, and everyone watching knew it. Everyone could see the difference between someone who had come in good faith and someone who had come with an agenda. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a talented performer who had worked his way up from nothing, who had earned every bit of his success, who had tried to stay professional even in the face of baseless attacks. On the other side, a host who had used her position to launch those attacks, who had confused cruelty with courage, who had mistaken aggression for accountability. The audience didn't need anyone to tell them who was in the right. They could see it with their own eyes. As Jamie walked through the backstage area, crew members who had witnessed everything gave him supportive nods and quiet words of encouragement. "You did the right thing," one camera operator said. "That was incredibly unfair to word you," a makeup artist added. Even people who worked for the show, who depended on it for their livelihoods, couldn't hide their disapproval of what their host had done. That spoke volumes about how far over the line Savannah had gone. Meanwhile, back on the set, Savannah sat in her chair during the commercial break, staring at nothing. Her co-host tried to approach her, to offer support or advice, or maybe just to figure out what had happened. But she waved them away. She knew what she had done, she knew how it looked, and she knew there was no easy way to fix it. The interview that was supposed to make her look tough and uncompromising had instead made her look cruel and unprofessional. The irony was thick. Savannah had accused Jamie of being difficult, of being demanding, of treating people poorly. But in the span of one interview, she had demonstrated all of those qualities herself. She had been difficult by refusing to engage in good faith. She had been demanding by insisting Jamie answer for crimes he hadn't committed. She had treated him poorly by launching attack after attack without evidence or justification. She had become the very thing she accused him of being. And Jamie, he had shown up ready to promote his work, to share his passion, to connect with an audience that has supported him for decades. He had been blindsided by hostility where he expected hospitality. He had been attacked when he came in peace, and he had handled it with more grace and dignity than most people could have mustered in the same situation. He had defended himself without being defensive. He had stood his ground without being aggressive. He had walked away without burning bridges, leaving the door open for Savannah to reflect on her behavior even as he refused to tolerate it. The whole thing had been a masterclass in how to handle an ambush. Jamie hadn't shouted, he hadn't cursed, he hadn't made personal attacks. He had simply pointed out what was happening, called it what it was, and refused to participate any longer. He had set a boundary and enforced it. And in doing so, he had shown millions of viewers what it looks like to respect yourself enough to walk away from a situation that doesn't serve you. Savannah, on the other hand, had shown what happens when someone lets their ego get in the way of their judgment. She had confused being provocative with being profound. She had mistaken meanness for toughness. She had thought that going after a guest would make her look fearless when it actually made her look cruel. And now she was sitting in the wreckage of her own making, trying to figure out how to explain herself when there was no good explanation. The commercial break ended. Savannah had to go back on air. But Jamie Foxx was gone. The seat across from her sat empty, a physical reminder of what had just transpired. She tried to continue the show as if nothing had happened, moving on to the next segment, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But everyone watching knew, everyone had seen, and everyone would remember. In the days and weeks that would follow, the video clip would circulate everywhere. People would analyze every word, every expression, every moment of the exchange. They would debate whether Jamie should have stayed and fought harder or whether walking away was the stronger choice. But one thing would not be up for debate. One thing would be crystal clear to anyone who watched the footage. Savannah Guthrie had crossed a line, and Jamie Foxx had been well within his rights to draw a new one. This was supposed to be just another morning show interview, a friendly chat, a chance for a star to promote their work and connect with fans. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when someone in power forgets that with that power comes responsibility. Savannah had a platform, she had an audience, she had influence. And she used all of it to attack someone who had done nothing to deserve it. Jamie walked out of that studio with his head held high, his integrity intact, and his reputation actually enhanced by how he handled an impossible situation. Savannah remained in her chair, trying to salvage a show that had already been lost the moment she decided to ambush rather than interview her guest. The roles had reversed completely. The person who was supposed to be in control had lost it. The person who was supposed to be vulnerable had claimed his power. As the studio audience filed out after the show ended, they talked among themselves about what they had witnessed. "I can't believe she treated him that way," one woman said to her friend. "He was so calm and collected," a man remarked. "I would have walked out even sooner," another person added. The consensus was clear. Jamie Foxx had been wronged, and he had handled it perfectly. Savannah Guthrie had overstepped badly, and everyone had seen it happen in real time. The thing about live television is that there are no second takes. There are no do-overs. What happens, happens, and everyone sees it. Savannah couldn't edit out her attacks. She couldn't soften her tone in post-production. She couldn't add context that would make her behavior seem more reasonable. Everything was captured exactly as it occurred, and what it showed was not flattering. For Jamie, this moment would become another example of his character. People already knew he was talented. They already knew he was charismatic. But now they also knew he wouldn't be pushed around. They knew he would stand up for himself with dignity and grace. They knew he would walk away from toxicity even when it might have been easier to just sit there and take it. And that made them respect him even more. For Savannah, this moment would be different. It would raise questions about her judgment, her preparation, her treatment of guests. It would make future guests think twice about sitting across from her, wondering if they too might be ambushed with unfounded accusations. It would make viewers question whether they could trust her to be fair and balanced. The very things that make a journalist credible had been called into doubt by her own actions. The empty chair where Jamie had been sitting seemed to grow larger as the show continued. It was impossible to ignore, impossible to pretend everything was fine. Every time the camera panned across the set, there it was, a reminder of what had been lost. Not just a guest, not just an interview, but credibility, trust. The basic understanding that when someone agrees to appear on your show, you treat them with respect. Jamie didn't need to come back and have the last word. He had already said everything that needed saying. His exit was his final statement, and it was more powerful than any monologue could have been. By refusing to engage further, by declining to participate in whatever game Savannah was playing, he had won without having to fight. And sometimes, that's the strongest position of all. The morning that had started with such promise, with such potential for a great interview, had ended in disaster. But the disaster wasn't Jamie's. He was fine. He would move on to his next project, his next interview, his next opportunity to connect with fans. The disaster was Savannah's. She would have to figure out how to move forward after showing millions of people a side of herself that wasn't particularly appealing. In the end, this wasn't really a story about an interview gone wrong. It was a story about power and how we use it. It was a story about respect and what happens when it's absent. It was a story about knowing when to walk away and having the courage to do it. Jamie Foxx walked onto that set as a respected performer. He walked off as something more than that, a person who knew his worth and refused to let anyone diminish it.